you a little bit of aviation, not history, but maybe technical flight information for you. Anybody in the audience know where the expression push the envelope comes from? You guys can shout. I know you can. I heard you. Excellent. Exactly. Oh, you must have read my book. Very good. You know what? I got to tell you, it takes talking to an audience full of women for somebody to know that, because I have talked all over the place and nobody ever knows the answer to that. Pushing the envelope, an aviation or Air Force expression, and I have to share with all of you that all good business expressions do not come from golf. No, they come from the Air Force. Pushing the envelope. So a little bit about my history and why I'm going to talk about pushing the envelope for a minute. I grew up as an Air Force brat. I have been my entire life a bit of a flyer wannabe, if you will. And by the time I was 18, I learned how to fly gliders. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I had a power license. I just loved everything to do with airplanes. And I decided, even though I had a business degree, that, maybe I should just go join the Air Force. It looks like a lot of fun. I love flying. Growing up around that business, et cetera, et cetera. Well, unfortunately, by the time I went and saw the recruiters, somebody must have got in there before me and said, hey, this lady's going to come in to talk to you about being a pilot. She cannot land an airplane to save her life. So that was me. I actually was not very good at landing airplanes. So they had another plan for me when I went and saw the recruiters, to be a military Air Force logistics officer. And they sent me to North Bay, Ontario. Anybody here from North Bay? We've got one in the audience. Let me tell you, North Bay is a whole lot better than Goose Bay, where they also sent me as well. But they sent me to North Bay, Ontario, to work at Fighter Group Command Headquarters, 21 years old, and I was going to be working on an Air Force base that was full of those things. Fighter jets from around the world would come flying in. Very, very neat job for a 21-year-old girl, let me tell you. And I was going to get to know this special breed of professional called the test pilot, which is what Chuck Yeager was. The test pilots are like fighter pilots, but peak. These guys are the peak performers. These guys are the top guns of their business. These guys are sort of like the executive national vice presidents of Arbine. We got any of you guys in the audience? I'm sure we do. Right? So we got these top test pilots who are peaking in their business, and they have, I got to be honest, a pretty dangerous job, as this lady was telling us earlier. Because what these guys have to do for a living is take airplanes that have not yet really been flown or tested. The engineers have drawn them, they've been built, and then somebody's got to climb into these things, take them up, fly them faster than the speed of sound, spin them, loop them, pull G-force, and basically hope that the wings don't fall off. Well, what they're doing up here is operating these airplanes at what's called, and you guys should write this down because this is a definition that ties right into the theme today. They are operating the airplane at the maximum safe limits of performance. And the equation, there's a mathematical equation that describes that. That's called the envelope. So when you're pushing the envelope with these jets, you're operating at the maximum safe limits of performance. So what do you think about these professionals who every day, day in and day out, go up there and they're operating an airplane at maximum safe limits of performance? What happens when you do that? They're testing their courage. They're testing their skills and their confidence and their ability on a daily basis. They experience what I call the paradigm shift. They are operating at such a peak place that they change. They look back and they're not the same person they were before because they are continually growing. That's where you have what I call rapid growth, when you're really, really pushing yourself. But the reality is that about 50% of us, there's some interesting studies out there, we don't do that often. We don't get into that place where we're operating at our maximum safe limits of performance. And that's because of one word. Anybody know what that word is? Fear. Fear for many different reasons. Fear of rejection or humiliation, or fear of lack of family support, fear that you might run out of money, whatever it is, most of us, over 50% of us, don't go after our dreams, don't operate at our maximum safe limits of performance because of fear. So I have a question for all of you that I'd like you guys to think about. In the last year, how many of you have gone after something that you didn't know you'd be able to do, but you really wanted it, scared you a little bit, but you went after this? It might have been a promotion, a career change, a new job, and you get in the middle of it and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't even know if I can get out of this. I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but you keep pushing through, and a month later you've succeeded and you're done, and you look back and you think, damn, I'm good. I knew I was going to be able to do that. How many of you been there in the last year? I see a lot of hands out there. That's excellent. How many of you have been there in the last 6 months? How many of you have been there in the last month? I want to cheer for everybody in the audience who's been there, because when you're operating in that place, you're operating in your maximum safe limits of performance, that's when you experience the paradigm shift. That's where you have the rapid growth. And if we look at these test pilots, these guys are doing it a whole lot. But the reality is, to be there and to get into that situation, it takes guts. It takes commitment. I remember walking into one of the officers' mess one Friday night, place that we go and have a lot of fun on Fridays and catch up on the stressful week. And I saw one of my buddies hanging over the bar, one of these test pilots, and his name was Sparky. And I went over to him, and they have funny names in the Air Force. They'll have call signs. Sparky. And I said, Sparky, what's going on? You don't look very good. You're sort of hanging over the bar, and you got a whole bunch of beer lined up in front of you. He said, oh, Ange, he said, I got to tell you that I had the worst flight of my entire life today. I said, really, what happened? He said, I took this jet up, this brand new jet, and I'm flying it, routine flight, and it starts shaking, and it starts buffeting, and I call the tower, and we're talking about ejecting, and I don't know, it was totally out of control, and somehow at the last minute I got it back into control. I landed it, and anyways, here I am, drinking a lot of beer. And I said, holy cow, you know, the most difficult thing I had to do today was deal with a paper cut from my inbox. And you got to deal with stuff like that. Now, how do you get back in that jet tomorrow? After you've dealt with that sort of thing, what makes you go back there after almost failing on your mission today? He said, you know what, Ange? He said, you want to soar with the eagles. You want to do the neat things and go after the good stuff. We have this expression in the Air Force. You speak any Latin? Illegitimi non carborundum. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have hurdles and obstacles, and you got to remember, you can't let the bastards grind you down. That's what illegitimi non carborundum means. So tip number 1, you want to have explosive, rapid growth. You want to build your business. You want to grow your business. You've got to get good at operating at your maximum safe limits of performance, pushing the envelope. And I want you to grab your pens, and I want you to finish this sentence for me. If failure was not an option and you were absolutely guaranteed success, finish this sentence for me. In the next 7 days with my career at Arbonne, in the next 7 days, I would do blank to push the envelope. Fill that one out